Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm Mark, and as always, I'm here with Jenny.
Hey Mark, always good to be here. And today, we're diving into something pretty interesting, right? SimSpace's Stack Optimizer.
Oh yeah, this is a fun one. We're talking about stress testing your entire cybersecurity setup, times before, times the bad guys do. It's like, when you build a really elaborate sandcastle, and you want to make sure it can withstand the waves? This is that, but for your digital fortress.
Okay, wait, let me get this straight. The BDAC. So instead of waiting for a real cyber attack, companies can use this to simulate times an attack? To see if their defenses hold up?
Exactly. And it's not just any simulation. We're talking times hyper-realistic time simulations. I was just reading about this. And they're replicating everything. The network, the applications, even the way users behave. The whole shebang.
That's really interesting. But how does it actually work? Are we talking about coding these simulations from scratch, or?
So what's happening is, SimSpace has this platform where you can clone your IT environment. Think digital twin. And then they unleash these pre-built attack scenarios. Or you can even customize your own. It's all based on real-world threats like the MITRE ATT&CK framework stuff.
Hold up. Can we break that down a bit? MITRE ATT&CK. That's like a playbook of known cyber attack techniques, right?
You got it. It's a knowledge base of adversary tactics and techniques. So Stack Optimizer uses this to make sure the simulations are as close to reality as possible. And the important part is, it's not just about asterisk finding times vulnerabilities, which is what ABERTY, a regular penetration test, might do.
I can already hear our listeners thinking, okay, so it's more than just a fancy penetration test? What else is it doing?
It's about asterisk optimizing times your entire security stack. It looks at how your SIEM, your EDR, your firewalls, all those tools work times together. Are there overlaps? Are there gaps? It helps you fine-tune, get everything working in harmony.
This reminds me of training for a marathon. You don't just run 26.2 miles on day one. You train, test your limits, adjust your strategies. This is the cybersecurity equivalent of that, huh?
That's a asterisk great times analogy, Jenny. And it's not just about the tech, it's about the people, too. It helps train your security team, lets them practice their incident response in a safe environment.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's like a fire drill for your cybersecurity team?
Yeah. And they can see, in real time, how their tools are performing, where the alerts are coming from, how long it takes them to respond. It's all measurable.
This might sound weird, but has anyone quantified the benefits? Like, are there numbers to back this up?
Oh yeah. I saw some stats from a case study. They were talking about a 37% reduction in false positives and a 58% reduction in mean time to detect, or MTTR. That's the time it takes to asterisk find times the bad stuff happening.
Wow, those are significant improvements. It's like going from barely seeing the problem to having a clear view almost instantly.
And it gets even better. Fewer false positives mean less time wasted chasing ghosts. And a faster MTTR means less time for attackers to do damage.
So it's not just about preventing attacks, but also minimizing the impact when something does happen. Because, let's face it, breaches are almost inevitable these days, right?
Sadly, yeah. It's a constant arms race. But with tools like this, companies can at least be better prepared. William Hutchison, the CEO of SimSpace, said that old-school red team exercises just don't cut it anymore. You need this kind of measurable, deterministic benchmarking.
I have to ask, are there any downsides? I mean, nothing's perfect, right?
Well, one thing is that it times a simulation. While it's very realistic, it can't perfectly replicate every real-world scenario. There might be some edge cases, some super niche attack vectors that aren't covered.
That's fair. It's like, even the best flight simulator can't account for asterisk every possible real-world flying condition. I mean, turbulence can come out of nowhere, right?
Exactly. But, and this is a big but, it's still a asterisk massive step up. It's about getting as close as possible and constantly improving. SimSpace updates things based on feedback, so it's always evolving. They also rely on things like the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which gets that sweet community-driven threat intel.
Okay. So it's about continuous improvement, refining the simulations based on new threats and new data. But what about smaller companies? Is this something they can even consider?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's a valid concern. There's probably a bigger upfront cost compared to, say, a simple penetration test. But, and hear me out, Think about the long-term times cost. A major breach can be devastating, especially for a smaller business. IBM said the average cost of a data breach in 2022 was over $4.3 million. So while it might seem expensive initially, it could be a huge cost saver in the long run.
That's a really good point. It's kind of like insurance, right? You hope you never need it, but you're sure glad you have it when something goes wrong. So it is an investment, not merely an expense.
Precisely. And, we like to keep things balanced. We have talked about the cost. And we have hit on the limitations of the simulation. What about how current the simulation can be? How can SimSpace keep up?
That is a great question. I think that goes back to that MITRE ATT&CK framework. It is not just SimSpace, it is that whole community updating the intel.
And that, my friends, is what makes Stack Optimizer so compelling. It's not just a tool. It's a whole new way of thinking about cybersecurity.
So to wrap it up, it sounds like SimSpace's Stack Optimizer is helping organizations move from a reactive to a proactive security posture. It's about anticipating and preparing rather than just reacting.
You got it. And I think we're going to see more of this in the future. It's just the logical next step.
Another great deep dive into cybersecurity. Thanks, Mark. And hey, listeners, let us know what you times think. What are your biggest cybersecurity challenges? Hit us up on social media. Use the hashtag #CybersecureFacts. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and maybe we can even do a listener call-in segment sometime soon. Or, how about this? A design your own threat scenario challenge. We could even get some experts to give feedback on your ideas.
Ooh, I love that. We could even do a myth-busting segment. Tackle some common misconceptions about cybersecurity.
Perfect. Plenty of ideas to keep us busy. Anyway, thanks to all of you for listening. We'll be back next week with more.